morning, everyone. You'll be aware that the Bermuda Police Service hosted the 28th Annual General Meeting and Conference of the Association of Caribbean Commissioners of Police, the ACCP, and that was held this week between the 29th of April and the 2nd of May at the Fairmont Hamilton Princess Hotel. Certainly, as the host, and from my perspective, I would say it was a resounding success in terms of planning and organizing and the actual session itself. And in a few minutes, I'll invite the new president of the ACCP to talk more about the meetings and the sessions and some of the business that was discussed. I just wanted to make a note that the former president of the association and Commissioner of the Royal Bahamas Police Force, Mr. Ellison Greenslade, had served for 3 years, which is the maximum term limit allowed by the rules, and accordingly a new executive was elected, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome the new president of the association and Commissioner for the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service, Commissioner David Baines.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My pleasure to speak and address you this morning. As Commissioner DeSilva mentioned, we've had a week discussing the key problems that we face across the entire Caribbean region and Bermuda. The title of the conference and the theme of the conference was Police and Public Partnerships, joining up prevention, intervention and enforcement strategies to tackle gangs and youth violence. I think the nature of the title explains the journey that the police service, not only here but across the world, is taking. Because if we were having this discussion 15 years ago, we would only be talking about enforcement, because that's the primary role of policing. What we've seen now is that there's a real need, if we're going to stem the violence that is afflicting our community and seeing young men killed in gang and gun violence, is the need to intervene and prevent much sooner. We're talking about entering primary school age. We're talking about starting to affect children's lives as early as 9 years old. And then doing all that we can, by whatever means we can, to stop those young people being influenced by or engaging in gang activity. So we've had educationalists, we've had academics, we've had law enforcement, all addressing us this week, and the idea that every one of our commissioners goes back with a better toolbox of an action plan to address their specific problems. Because whilst we speak as a region, we face very different backgrounds. Places like Bermuda and Cayman have a significantly wealthy infrastructure, capability and background. Other countries suffer severe poverty, where some of the benefits that we are able to enjoy are not available to them. And the scale and depth of their problem is not only greater, but their ability to respond even more challenging. So the idea of this, of bringing all these commissioners together, has been to work collectively, share best practice, and help one another wherever possible. And indeed, that has been looking at innovative legislation that has worked in one area, sharing it quickly with our colleagues and enabling them to move forward. The problem we face with crime, and certainly the levels of violence that are experienced in some of our islands, is that to change legislation often takes time. We've seen some real benefits by being nimble in the ability to change legislation, to change direction, to implement policy. That then demonstrates success, and success then has encouraged others to share that and move things forward. So all of us have gone back with a better understanding of what's available to us to take issues forward. That's one side about dealing with gangs. The second was about stemming the flow of weapons into the region and how we can work closer with US federal authorities to stemming the guns. Because what has and is becoming increasingly apparent is that we're seeing weapons that were traditionally going down to the South Americas through the Mexican-US border. As the US authorities are now closing that border and putting more enforcement, we're beginning to see an increase in gun dealers in the Florida area, growing in number and the weapons that are being recovered throughout the region originating from Florida itself. So we had US federal authority agencies working with us to make sure that we can do all we can to identify criminal exploitation of firearms and to stem that flood that is coming into our region. In addition, one of the resolutions is to bring into place something that's called RIBIN, Regional Integrated Ballistics Information Network, so that when a gun is used or fired in any one of our islands, it is compared not just with the evidence in that island, but also in every other island within the Caribbean, and then we can take it further to see and connect it to crime scenes anywhere in the world via the use of Interpol. We have acquired the technical equipment to do this. We've now all committed to the agreement to sign up and share that data between every one of our Caribbean countries and to move that to operational capability as soon as it's practical, and certainly in the next few months. One of the most impactful presentations came from one of our colleagues, Chief Howell from St. Croix, who came and spoke to us about the experience of being on duty, his intercepting an armed robbery suspect, and as they were about to challenge, being attacked by AK-47 weapons that left him with a shattered arm, his colleague having been shot twice in the face with high-velocity weapons, and talking about choices he made between life and death, and the ability, and the reason he was stood there telling us his experience, and showing us the scars of his willingness to put himself in harm's way, all went down to having a very simple trauma kit in the car. Now this may seem basic, but it has inspired every commissioner to commit that every police officer in the region will be equipped with trauma kits, and every vehicle will carry those trauma kits, because minutes will save lives. It's intended, not only will it keep our officers safer, but it will have them better prepared to save lives when they're first on the scene, to stem bleeding of somebody who's been shot and is bleeding profusely. Quite often it isn't the gunshot itself that people die of, it's the bleeding out before they're able to get to hospital. So the other commitment we've taken is not only in stemming and addressing and preventing gun crime, but equipping our staff to survive better and to help those who are affected by such attacks to survive better also. So we've had a busy week, taken lessons back to our individual countries and established stronger relationships where we are able to understand what is best practice and ensure that it is shared across all our members. So that's the purpose of our meeting. Finally, it would be remiss of me not to thank two particular individuals that made this happen. I say individuals. Commissioner DeSilva in volunteering your country to host this, to bring us together, to share our experiences, not only as the leader of the Bermuda Police Service, I should say, but also the Bermudan people who've made us extremely welcome. Nothing was too much trouble. And so we've been able to see and touch on the beauty and hospitality of your island. And sometimes you forget just how beautiful some places are and need to be reminded of the blessings you have. And I suggest you go and visit some other places where you are not so blessed. So a big thank you to Bermuda for hosting this. And perhaps more importantly, a bigger one to your community, who have been extremely welcoming and couldn't have been more gracious in supporting the event that we've enjoyed this past week. So thank you.
Any questions at this time?
Quick question.
For
Just a quick question in relation to the trauma kits. How soon are you expecting them to be in the police cars across the region?
Right. The first thing we've done, having committed to this, is to send out a request. I want to know how many trauma kits exist already, and you'll imagine for some will be well equipped and others less so, so we can gain a scale. But we've got over 10,000 officers in the region itself, so I'm fairly sure there will be a significant demand. Yesterday I was speaking to sponsors about how we can change the dynamics in sponsorship so we can move that ambitious approach into a reality. So far we've had formal improvement. What I can tell you is some already have trauma kits already.
Okay.
What is clear is we need more, And we need to move it from the specialist units, such as firearms units, to every single police officer, so that they're able to protect themselves and protect those they serve.
Okay. Commissioner DeSilva, do we have trauma kits in Bermuda? If so, do you know how many?
We do have them. I don't have a count. I can say we don't have them in every vehicle, and I think Commissioner Baines has explained that that's the new goal.
Thank you.
For Commissioner Baines, what is your stance on American gun legislation if, as you say, these guns are coming from America? Do you think that increased background checks might have a knock-on effect for the amount of guns being exported?
I seek to influence those areas I have a chance of informing, that is the Caribbean. I speak closely with US law enforcement agencies. There is no gap between their perspective about the dangerous possession of firearms by inappropriate people. I have no wish to engage in amending the US Constitution or indeed in challenging. I know my limitations. What is clear is that we work closely with our US federal authorities and individual police forces to fight the common ilk of criminals having possession of firearms that do one thing: they lead to death in the streets and misery for people wherever they are in the world. And America's not shy of understanding that pain.
And second question, could you just speak on your nomination as Vice President of the ACCP yesterday?
I previously served on the association as the second Vice President. I've been in that position for 3 years. I'm honoured that my colleagues have sufficient faith and trust that I can represent their interests in what is increasingly becoming a global village where policing has to have its say if we're going to secure the most secure areas. We share a lot of professional background and history, and I'm honoured that they chose that I would be the person for the next 12 months to lead that, to be their representative.
Mr. Baines, I guess selfishly for us, we understand that our commissioner has been chosen as vice president. Can you give us a little background and history as to you two actually working together as well?
Well, as I spoke last night, I mentioned that I was aware that Commissioner DeSilva has a linkage to the Cayman Islands, having gone as part of a support team to the Cayman Islands in 2004 as an inspector, along with one of your current senators who was mentioned, who also was part of that group. So he understands my working environment. This is my first visit to Bermuda. I understand his working environment. We share many commonalities. Those commonalities are not experienced in some of the other countries. What I would say is we share a common background in common law and the application and rule of law and the independence of operational policing. That brings some strengths and real benefits about bringing professional policing to our communities and sharing those experiences with our colleagues across the region. I'm delighted to have Mr. DeSilva as the first Vice President, and I'm sure that collectively we can work together to represent every one of our colleagues in moving forward to secure our communities, whichever or wherever they are.